So good evening again, everybody. My name is AJ Ehrenstein. I'm one of the two deans in charge of Beyond Barnard. We hope that summer is off to a good start for you all. And most importantly, as we've basically been saying every single day with every single email and at every single event, we hope you're doing okay. We hope that you're safe and that you're well. And that as ongoing protests have reshaped the conversation about equity and justice in the United States, that you're plugged into those conversations while also taking care of yourself to the best that you can and recuperating from a really challenging academic year. I'm really excited to kick off the Summer Colloquium series at Beyond Barnard. This is a new initiative for us. It's going to extend over the course of the next 8 weeks, and it really represents the institution's commitment to supporting everybody, students and alumni, during what has been an incredibly complicated moment, both because we're scattered around the country and around the world, because we're remote, because the news has been quite stressful, and because there is uncertainty in so many different areas of our lives. Colloquium is meant to bring this community together. I'm so excited that Christine, who's on the call this evening, is doing such a great job marshaling the resources of the staff at Beyond Barnard to put together some amazing programs across the next 8 weeks. And we hope that you'll sign up for some of them. The link is right there. You can't click the screen, unfortunately, but within the Barnard website or in Handshake, you can find all of the events that are associated with Summer Colloquium. We'll talk more about that as we go through the presentation this evening. Just really quickly, what we're going to be going through over the course of this first kickoff event, over the course of the hour, we're going to give some opening thoughts on the COVID market, and I'm going to be talking about this. And a heads up to all of you who might also be scheduled for tomorrow's event, Making the Most of Summer Colloquium. A lot of what we talk about tonight will be echoed in that presentation. Tonight's conversation is tailored more towards juniors, seniors in the class of 2020 that recently graduated into this economic climate. Anyone is totally allowed to stay. I just kind of want to give you a heads up that tonight's presentation is really tailored more towards those who are even potentially looking for full-time work right now, whereas tomorrow's will focus a little more on returning students and this summer. From the discussion about what we're seeing in the COVID marketplace right now, we're going to move towards thinking holistically about graduate school. When we think about the job market, I know a lot of students and a lot of alums that our entire team has advised over the course of the last 3 months has pivoted towards thinking about graduate school, and we have some specific feedback and ideas about how to think about graduate school as a possibility for yourself. Alexa will talk about networking strategies and the platforms that we really advocate using at Beyond Barnard, both always, but especially during this particularly challenging moment. Christine will talk about hiring, skill building, and volunteering, different options to explore as you think about longer term options for yourself. And I'll round it back out with how you can use Beyond Barnard advising over the course of the next several months, the next several years, your entire career. Afterwards, we serve all students and all alumni of the college, so we'll just start a little bit to foreshadow how the next couple of months in summer will shake out and give you some ideas about how to use us throughout the coming year. But very first, I wanted to introduce the disembodied voices on today's call. Like I said, I'm AJ Ehrenstein. I'm one of the two deans of Beyond Barnard. I keep meaning to change this picture because it's so dorky and my head is so shiny, but there it is. That's my headshot. And I'm joined by two of my great colleagues this evening who I'll let introduce themselves. Also two alumni of the college, which is great.
Hi, everybody. I'm Christine Valenza-Shin. I'm class of 84, and I'm the Senior Associate Director for our Advising and Programs team. And thanks to both Alexa and AJ for everything that everyone's been doing to sort of pull this together. And we're really excited to launch these programs this summer. And we've basically been working from home since March 13th and haven't really missed a step. I know we've seen a lot of people in advising. We've had a really great attendance at our programs for the second half of the spring, and we're hoping to equally have a lot of people join us for the summer. And please let whichever friends you're in touch with from Barnard, let them know if you want to share some of what's available. That would be great.
And I'm Alexa Hamill. I'm also an alum. I graduated in 2013, and I'm one of the two associate directors for advising and programs. So I'm excited to talk about mostly networking tonight and hopefully seeing some of you in the other sessions I'll be leading later this summer.
Thanks to the both of you. So let's get into it. our first agenda item is some opening thoughts about what we're seeing in the job market, the macroeconomic conditions that are shadowing what's happening both in terms of the pandemic, global economy, and even some thoughts about what we're seeing right here in the New York metropolitan region. So the very first thing that we always want to say is that after an academic year, we want to make sure that you are taking some time to rest, to reflect on everything that's happened, to take a breath. We think that mental health is so important at Beyond Barnard. We have talked to so many different students who are experiencing all kinds of strain related to their experience of really distressing news, both related to COVID and to ongoing protests and very tough conversations about equity and injustice in this country and around the world. These are important conversations to have, and we know that so many of you are part of those conversations, and we're delighted to be participating in them to the extent that we can this summer as well. But we do think that summer is an important moment for you to take a breath, to try to disconnect and take a step back, to think about what you've achieved, what you've accomplished, to take a look at some pictures of dogs on beach towels, on the beach in sunglasses, which is a fun thing to Google, I will tell you, putting this presentation together. But we really do mean it, and we hope that you'll use us as sounding boards for ideas about how to decompress a little bit and take a breath, which I know is necessary for so many of us. Okay, that said, that's a slide to prep you for what we all know. In terms of macroeconomic news right now, there hasn't been a lot of good macroeconomic news in a long time. And we want to acknowledge that. We don't want to paper over the fact that the news isn't good. Jobless claims are up, slightly down over the course of the last month, but almost certainly based on what we're seeing at Beyond Barnard and in the news, jobless claims will climb again. According to Fox News, Jeopardy is running reruns all summer. This is terrible news. I need fresh Jeopardy to keep me entertained. But in all seriousness, the economic outlook that the class of 2020 is graduating into is much more serious and much more dire than you could have possibly expected in February. We want to acknowledge that. But we also want to make sure that you're not so scared by the economic news that you can't take tactical steps to move forward. We also don't want you to be so distracted by the big picture that you don't feel empowered with information about what we're seeing locally, not only in this region, not only in the kinds of industries to which Barnard students apply, but among actual Barnard graduates and even students who have been successful in finding internships and other opportunities this summer. Here, in full disclosure, are some of the things that we're seeing, some of the things that we're thinking about at Beyond Barnard when it comes to these macro trends. The first thing is that the recession that is already washing over the United States right now is affecting college graduates differently than non-college graduates. The way that the COVID pandemic is affecting populations is stratified by race, by economic strata, by education in ways that are really complicated. But the news for college graduates is that the recession is not hitting them as hard as it is other segments of the population. This is largely due to the fact that the kinds of jobs that Barnard students, among many others that are graduating from institutions around the country right now, those kinds of jobs are able to be done remotely. And remote work is continuing in many areas of the economy. So far in summer 2020, we're seeing a lot of results from the class of 2019 we're seeing a lot of results that look similar to those of the class of 2019. This is based on our first destination survey. About 260 students out of the total 706 that are being surveyed have responded already. And we're not seeing trends that suggest that the economic situation of students graduating from the class of 2020 is so drastically different than 2019. That is not to say that people are not still looking for work or graduate school. It is merely to say that in any given year, just 4 or 5 weeks after graduation, the vast majority of students are still looking for some kind of opportunity after graduation. So if you're feeling like you're behind, if you're feeling anxious, we want to make sure that you feel reassured that there are resources to help you navigate the way forward and that the economy is actually not behaving so differently that it's not recognizable to us versus other years. Keep in mind that job searches in certain industries always take longer, and it will take longer in a recession as well. So the next couple of months will take some determination and creativity when it comes to navigating a difficult economic landscape. But Christine and Alexa will talk about some of the strategies that we see are successful among students and recent alums at every level. We have seen some delays to start dates in certain industries. They are still fairly sporadic. We do need folks to continue to give us survey data so that we understand better the landscape of what folks are dealing with. So far, rescinded offers and delayed start dates are not in any way drastically outpacing, again, previous cycles of employment that we've seen. And fall hiring for 2021, for those of you who are rising seniors who may be on the call this evening, we don't know from recruiters that hiring has been changed so much. Plans are still very uncertain, but to our understanding so far, conditions will remain consistent until we have a lot more information about what the economy could look like. In other words, we want to talk a little about where we are and where we'll end up. What you're seeing in the left-hand side of your screen right now is essentially a color graphic representing the numbers on the right. I didn't do all the data labels, I didn't have time, so you'll bear with me, I hope. The main point I want to make is graduating seniors are already in employment in many of the same industries that they would end up in a typical year. What we are seeing is that industries that hired early. So financial services, consulting, some areas of tech that traditionally overrepresent in employment in the beginning of the summer are overrepresented right now. By the time November rolls around and we have our final outcomes for the class of 2020, we'll see many more folks in nonprofits. We'll see many more folks in places like law, government, and politics. But the fact of the matter is, even in the best years, those kinds of industries hire, recruit, and retain individuals later than some of the industries that recruit folks as early as the fall previous to graduation. If you don't believe me, we've got the data to back it up. This is a quick view of the job postings in Handshake right now divided by industry. And you'll notice all the way to the left, K through 12 education, nonprofit, other, which is essentially a catch-all for many different kinds of nonprofit organizations, and healthcare all still have a large number of postings in the system. We're going to talk about how to use platforms other than Handshake to look for information, but right now, this is in line with what we see in a typical year. Thing to note, there are definitely fewer overall positions. In fact, in aggregate, there are 50% fewer positions posted in Handshake right now than at this point last year. That can sound a little scary as well. But if you take a look at that active jobs by US state, and you notice that New York is the only state in the red, there are more economic opportunities based here in New York, which is typically good news for Barnard students because for some reason the city tricks you all and you all want to stay here in some capacity. I will never understand it, but I'm glad for it because I live here too, it's my hometown. But opportunities in New York are better than in other places in the country that have in some cases not opened up as much, but in all cases have fewer overall economic opportunities. Overall, we want to make sure that you know that no single summer, no matter what happens right now, is going to define your entire career trajectory. Even though this is a different economic climate, where you start this year will not determine the entirety of the next 40, 50 years of your career lifespan. We want you to be confident about that if you can and work with us to help stay optimistic until you can be optimistic for yourself. Particularly in the context of COVID-19, employers understand that job start dates are later, that folks bring a little bit less experience to their first entry-level position than they might otherwise in a typical time. Everyone understands that this is a global pandemic and that the economic conditions that are affecting candidates at Barnard are not just affecting candidates at Barnard, they're affecting every single individual in the economy right now, including folks who are much farther along in their career. We want to encourage you to situate yourself then in a broader community facing a range of challenges while at the same time able to identify opportunities. You are not alone in this. You're not the only person looking for work, looking for opportunities, thinking about graduate school, and it can be helpful to create solidarity, which is one of the goals of Mission Job for sure, which we'll talk about, but Summer Colloquium generally, to connect to other individuals who are experiencing the same circumstances as you. We also think that it's really effective in this kind of moment to ask not what the community can give to you, but how you can support communities in a context of exceptional strain. For some of you, that may be participating in political action, in direct advocacy, in getting into the streets. For others of you, participating in supporting your communities could mean trying to figure out how to bring your skills to an internship experience before pursuing full-time work. It might mean doing a short-term project for an alum. Making a contribution and asking how you can support communities as opposed to asking what those communities can give to you is an attitude that we have found really appreciated among all manner of employers alumni, faculty, and many others at this point. Like we said at the top, though, it's still important to dedicate time to reflection and transition. We're going to have a series later in the summer called the School to Work Transition. This is going to be a great time for you to think about all of the mental and psychological, emotional shifts that actually happen at the end of college and in the transition to the workplace. And we just want to make sure you're making time to do that work. At this point, that's kind of the overall spiel about where we are in the economy and how we're thinking about things broadly at Beyond Barnard. I want to hand it off to Christine, who's going to talk a little bit about thinking holistically about graduate school, as we know that in a down economy, often the impulse is to flee to graduate school. And we want to talk about how you can dedicate some intentional reflective time to that decision. Christine.
Thanks. Yes, it's a very strong tendency. If it's not within yourself, you're probably hearing it externally from parents and other influential adults to, hey, let's think about graduate school. And graduate school is a great thing to think about, but you want to think about it carefully and think about it in terms of in the context of your long-term goals and how it might fit in. On the, and it's sort of a cost-benefit analysis. What I often say to people as they're asking questions about graduate school is, just to think it's a fair amount of time, it's a fair amount of money. It's a different experience than undergrad. And so you want to make sure that you're going to be getting the most for your time and your money, and that it's something that fits into your long-term goals. So, as always, even if it's a short pause, we always encourage people to stop and think, talk it through, make an appointment with anybody on our team to sort of just talk through that process and bat around some ideas. But it is a really good opportunity, whether you're thinking about it sooner or later, to think holistically about graduate school and to do some research. So taking a look at, the type of degree you might be interested in, the programs you might be interested in. You can do that backwards by thinking about what fields you're going into and doing a little bit of LinkedIn research on people who are in that field and sort of looking at their profiles and how they got there, what kind of degrees they have. So that's both institutions and people. You can definitely reach out to the institutions about information sessions they might have and questions you might have. And fellowships can be another thing to look into. How are you going to pay for graduate school? What are the opportunities there? We have a dedicated fellowships advisor here at Beyond Barnard, Jennifer Leck, and she has a lot of resources in Handshake and info sessions that have been recorded. So that's a great place to start. And then you can follow up with her individually to talk about your particular situation. Doing research, whether it's on your own or helping somebody out, can be really helpful. Like, think about, as you're leaving college, what questions do you have? What fields are you still interested in, outside of your major? And how could that fit into your graduate school plans? And then just kind of, I think, as with any career exploring, it's an opportunity to kind of throw the doors open and say, hey, let me look around. Let me look around what's out there and think about whether that might be a good fit. And then, of course, a lot of people these days are looking at graduate programs for tech skills, as well as we'll talk about that at the end, some other places to pick up tech skills. But there's been a lot of flexibility in, I guess, what we call the graduate school market to try and respond to what industries are looking for. So data analysis programs, computer and coding programs, there's a lot of possibilities out there. Good. So staying in touch with faculty and alumni, and again, as AJ said before, offering support. Is there something you can do to help them out? And then trying to set up time to check in. It doesn't have to be once a week with faculty, but, faculty that you had a strong relationship with or particularly enjoyed their class or, are very interested in their work. It's great to keep in touch. They're excellent guides to talking about graduate school and how it fits into the overall plan. And here at Beyond Barnard, not only actually we are doing several graduate school focused weeks. So take a look at that in the lineup. That'll give you a good overview. Alexa Alexa is running one on law school. We're doing business school. AJ's running a couple on the humanities and the social sciences. So we've got quite a few coming up this summer, and we'll continue to do that in the fall as well. And those are open to both students and alumni. But we also have individual advising appointments. It's one of the categories that you can sign up for. This is a great opportunity to look into standardized tests, look at the details, how much, when, how long do the scores last for, which ones do graduate schools call for, and, do some studying and potentially take the tests, soon or sometime in the next year. And definitely LinkedIn is a great tool. Alexa will talk about this more, of looking for people who are both currently in graduate school who can maybe answer some questions, as well as recent graduates of graduate school programs you're considering. That can be a really great resource. And then continue to pursue remote opportunities and experiences as well with various grad schools.
Yeah, well, Christine takes a drink of tea there. I'll just underscore two things that I'm really glad she said. The first is the summer is a great time to actually prepare for applications in the fall. So if you have time and you're thinking about graduate school as a career move, it's a really good time to reach out to faculty and be sure to secure letters of recommendation. But graduate school as a career move also means that networking is just as valuable in discerning which programs are a good fit for you as if you were heading off into industry. So when we think about the job market right now for for students generally, we do think about graduate school as a part of that, and reflect on how many students will be proceeding to apply to graduate programs in a down economy. It should be part of your consideration as well. I'm back on mute. You need a slide?
Yeah. Great. So actually now I'm going to pass things off to Alexa and talk about networking.
Okay, great. Thanks, Christine. So first thing we're going to start with about networking before we get into more of the logistics is this idea that asking for a job and you'll get advice, ask for advice and you'll get a job. So a lot of times with networking, students will make appointments and talk about networking once they're at the stage that they're actually seeking an internship or a job. But really, regardless of why a student or an alum is coming to talk to me, whether it be career exploration, job search, graduate school, networking is always part of that conversation because it's so essential and it's so important to really any stage that you're in. So this idea that networking is continuous is really important, and something that I think can also be a huge relief is knowing that even if maybe there aren't as many open positions right now on Handshake, there's still something very tangible that you can do, and it's really important to do before these applications really come out. So when you're thinking about your network, you're really thinking about how can I grow it, how can I develop it? Usually by the time a student is saying, oh, I applied for this awesome job at the Met and I reached out to somebody who works at the Met, that time is really too tight to hopefully leverage that for recruiting purposes. So if you can get all of your ducks in a row, if you can start this networking process, grow it, by the time the application comes out, you'll know who to reach out to and you'll already have that rapport in terms of actually referencing recruiting, because just as much as it's uncomfortable for you to ask for it, the reason why that usually is because that alum really has to trust that when they're making a recommendation, it's a positive recommendation. And the only way to really build upon that is to take the time to have multiple conversations. So I think especially now when you're thinking, I may not be hitting submit on as many applications, the networking component is going to be really big and it's going to make you that much more successful as applications really open. So only applying for jobs on websites will not get it done in the recession, or really ever. So now, more important than ever, is really about networking. It's about relying on alumni who can potentially vouch for you, who could potentially give you that resource that you've never heard of, that opens a lot more applications than you ever saw before on other sites. So it's definitely important that you gain this insight that you wouldn't otherwise have from doing research or applying for jobs on your own. And what it means by just applying for jobs on websites will not get you the job. So you apply for a job and maybe there's 5 other awesome applicants. So they also came from a great school, they have similar work experience. This is where really having a network is so important, because if you think, how can I have myself stand out from somebody, like I said, similar education, similar experience, having somebody who can say internally, I met with this person, or I have a really close friend who spoke to this person and she is really invested in the company. She, even though maybe her most recent experience isn't seemingly exactly relevant, these are some of the really transferable things that I gathered from her. So to get yourself from not just getting noticed in a resume, but then to get to that interview, it's so important to have somebody, because then from the recruiter's perspective, before I had this job, I was a recruiter. And when I had people come up to me and give me recommendations, that also kind of took the risk out of it from being a recruiter, right? So I'm having somebody who I really trust, who I really value, saying, I really trust and value this person. So that's really critical in terms of also just getting a job. So now, what are the concrete steps that you can take in terms of growing your network? So first and foremost, you're going to want to create a LinkedIn account if you don't already have one. We have awesome sessions that are coming up. We have a session that LinkedIn is actually going to run about rocking your profile. So definitely take a look at that. These tips can help. Also, something on the side that you can always do with an advisor is to take a look at your profile, see if you can improve your summary at all. So I won't go too much into detail, but that's, if you have specific questions about that, we'll have more specific sessions dedicated to it, and you can always ask an advisor about it. But what's great about LinkedIn is the way that you can actually search for and find these alums. So the reason why you'll always hear about saying networking with alumni is because you can network with anybody on LinkedIn, but we say to network with alumni because they already have that investment in a Barnard student without knowing you personally. You have that Barnard connection, and there are thousands and thousands of alumni who are on LinkedIn right now. So definitely taking advantage of that is huge. There's a great workshop that we have recorded that AJ has listed there on the link. So definitely take a look at that for more specifics when it comes to specific outreach. So here are some features on LinkedIn that I think can really help with actually finding these alumni. So when you search for Barnard College and you click on the school, this page will come up, and on the left-hand side, if you click on alumni, there'll be a number of different filters. So in this case, it's showing where they live and where they work, but then there are other filters as well. So maybe you're looking for, you know, I have students that say, I loved my poli-sci major. I'm not looking to be a lawyer, but what else can I do to connect it? You can search by major, you can search by industry. Down the line, like I said, if you really want to start leveraging your network at a specific company, you can always put that in. So this is a great way of really narrowing it down. And then whoever meets that criteria for these different filters will populate below. So like I said, we're not going to get too much into the actual outreach part of it and what I would include in that message. But this is really where you can find those alumni, and this is how you can narrow it in. So you're really finding alumni that fit in with exactly what you're looking for. So in addition to LinkedIn, other ways that you can build your network is on Barnard Connect. So hopefully, if you haven't already done so, definitely be sure to join it. The link is here, but if you just Google Barnard Connect, it'll be the first one that comes up. You'll hit join the community, and then once you're part of the community, you will be part of over the 900 students who are currently on Barnard Connect, who are looking to build their network as well. So right now, there are also over 600 alumni. So here on Barnard Connect, it is exclusively designed for Barnard students. I'm sure some of you know we've had a lot of awesome programs in the past, but we've realized that our global outreach can be even expanded even more. We can find alums from all over the world doing a number of different things and just housing them all on this awesome site. So knowing that Barnard Connect is designed exclusively for students and alumni, I think is what makes it so powerful, because it's a community in and of itself. But I think what's also so great to think about is a huge, I think, place that students get nervous about networking is when it comes to worrying about, like, do I want to reach out to somebody? Am I bothering them? I mean, I could spend like a lot more time talking about how much it's not bothering them, but I think if you are kind of having those similar fears, I think knowing that this is all voluntary, and if the alumni wanted to be there, they had to actually go through a sign-up process themselves. So knowing that alumni are there by choice, and the fact that it's over 600 who completed a sign-up, I think can also hopefully relieve those nerves and maybe provide a little bit better of a transition into making networking more part of your toolkit. I also wanted to say that on Barnard Connect, there are really great guides that are there. So in addition to the workshops that we have guides and tip sheets for really frequently asked questions. So how to draft the initial email to a mentor, what are some mentoring topics that you can talk about, questions. So it's a great resource for actual outreach. They even give templates when you're doing the message. So it's a great site if you haven't created one yet. And just another way that you can really build the network and find alumni. And then coming up in July, there's going to be an awesome new initiative that we're starting through Barnard Connect, and it's going to be called Beyond Mentoring. And it's going to be project-based opportunities. So these are going to be short-term projects that alumni, friends of the college, parents can provide. So although you may not be able to pursue something so formal in the immediate, you'll be getting some great experiences that can be done remote, that you can have on your resume, and that are really transferable. So you do need to have a Barnard Connect account even just for that. So make sure you make one regardless, but coming up in July, you'll hear a lot more from us about more details and what that's going to look like.
I just want to add too, Alexa's done a fantastic job rolling out Barnard Connect this year. We can actually see how the percentage of messages that get responded to in the system, and it's between 85 and 90%. So it really helps to lower the barrier to entry. It can feel intimidating to reach out on LinkedIn for the first time, but Barnard Connect makes it a lot easier. Additionally, the kinds of conversations that mentors expect to have with students really range across topics. And you're able in Barnard Connect to search by things like affinities on campus, campus groups. There are lots of first generation low income mentors. And I believe you can search by that status as well. You can call yourself out with some of these affinities as well. It really is an inclusive community where you can bring lots of different issues to bear. And I would really recommend signing up for time with Alexa to talk about some of the best practices for reaching out to mentors and helping, getting them to help you navigate this really complicated job market.
Okay, I think now we're going back to Christine for the skill building.
Yeah. So what else can you be doing during this job searching period? We're going to take a little bit of a look at hiring, skill building, and volunteering. And I think one of the key things that really it's a theme of everything we're talking about today is that what might be missing right now from your life at the moment is, school has ended and that structure has gone away, even the structure of remote learning, as different as it was. But also if you're not yet working, that structure is missing as well. And so part of what we're looking at is how can you create some structure around not only your job search itself, but around your day, around your week, around your month, so that you're feeling like you're moving productively. And one of the things I often talk to people about with networking is make networking, part of your routine, just the same way that you are routinely looking at job sites, you want to also be routinely checking in on Barnard Connect, checking in on LinkedIn, continuing to search, continuing to send out connection messages and having informational interviews. So in terms of getting hired, if you're looking for a job as soon as possible, there are a lot of remote opportunities out there, and they're not necessarily a close-ended internship. So you should be able to, actually, I just want AJ, remember when we were preparing before, I wasn't quite sure what you meant by this bullet. So I'm actually going to ask AJ to elaborate on what he was getting at here.
Which one, Christine? I'm so sorry.
The remote opportunities may not have an end date.
Oh, sure. Well, remote opportunities, that you're looking for, you might be signing up for something that looks short term, but remote opportunities, especially in tutoring right now, supporting students, we've seen tons of K through 12 opportunities. Essentially, some of this is about if you need wages in the immediate, don't hesitate to try to look for opportunities that are low in terms of the number of hours that you might need to work per week, but high in terms of the amount of compensation. And don't assume that just because there's a part-time gig that there's necessarily an end date on that remote commitment. You could be doing this work for quite some time. And we've seen some students have some real success connecting with summer camps that kind of go throughout the entirety of the next 10 weeks. We've seen folks have some success connecting with previous babysitting clients and saying, hey, I know you don't need babysitting right now, but I'm wondering if you might need a tutoring contact. So just don't be dissuaded from pursuing these kinds of remote opportunities because they can be really diverse, highly remunerative, and may not have a specific end date. Sorry, Christine.
Right. No, it's fine. I just wanted to make sure I was on the same wavelength as you. But you also want to continue to be strategic. And even if, I've had several conversations recently with recently graduated seniors who are definitely broadening what they're looking at and looking at transferable skills. You do need to be flexible, but you need to be strategic when you're looking at we'd make the argument that almost any opportunity is going to teach you something and is going to have some transferable skill. And certainly part of what we can do is help you identify those and convey those as you're continuing to apply to things. But you do want to look, there are fields, this recession is uneven and it has hit some industries obviously incredibly hard and others sort of more in the sense of everything's a little uncertain, so things have slowed up a little, but there's still work to be done. There's still hiring to be done. And just as an aside, we ran these mission job groups in the spring, 3 of them, and we haven't gotten the full stats yet, but I know just anecdotally that 3 of the people from my group have gotten jobs since we started mission jobs. So there's definitely still things being posted, interviews being held, offers being made. So, but some fields are doing particularly well, anything having to do with tech support. And that doesn't mean you have to have, hard skills necessarily. Tech support is also customer service and troubleshooting and, technical writing, being able to explain things. Telemedicine, obviously huge boom. And I've noticed in particular as dentists and other doctors have gone back to work now that the crisis in the hospitals is subsiding, at least in some places. So telemedicine is really taking off. Retail logistics, anything especially online. Media, big media has taken a pretty big hit, Jeopardy, among others. But anything streaming, anything digital, huge expansion there. Data is not going away anytime soon. Big tech, similarly, it's interesting, big tech, I feel like they're nervous to hire, but there's still a ton of work to be done and there's still a lot of ways to bring people in. And then as AJ mentioned, anything educationally related, a lot of parents and schools and kids were really scrambling for the last 3 months to make this remote education work the same way you all were. And so I'm sure some are happily embracing a break, but I think especially as the new school year unfolds, there's going to be a lot of concerns about kids being behind or needing to refresh. And so there's some opportunities, whether you're sort of promoting yourself as a tutor or joining in online tutoring programs or existing companies. There's a lot of possibilities. And the summer camp thing is interesting. Here in New York, day camps are allowed to be open, but not sleepaway camps. I think that, like schools and other kid-related education enterprises, they're looking for creative things to do online and help with that. So whether you're pitching that yourself or whether you're joining a team that is, offering things to kids and parents as well, that can be a good place to look. Handshake is only one resource, and as we pointed out in the data, the postings are down. But you need to, if you haven't already, you need to expand beyond Handshake. You've got your big general job boards, LinkedIn Jobs, Indeed.com are probably the 2 biggest at the moment. I know a lot of people look at Glassdoor.com. So those are big general job boards, and the key there is to use your filters and zero in on things you're interested in. But there's also what we call niche or industry-specific job boards. Idealist covers the nonprofit sector, Media Bistro covers communications, USA Jobs is for anything government related. And we actually, I was reminded when speaking with AJ this morning, we had one of our student workers over the spring semester put together a list of a ton of niche job sites. So we need to finish editing that and get that up, and we'll share that resource as soon as possible. And then LinkedIn, as I mentioned, has the job board, but they also started running a feature, who's hiring now. It's right in the, so every time you log into LinkedIn, if you look in the upper right corner, it's one of the bulleted points there, and it's helpful. And it's it's an interesting way to keep an eye on, where the hiring is taking place. So, and then we also started circulating very even early on. Some of you might have seen this, that Candor.co has a real-time hiring freezing sort of crowdsourcing document where you can take a look. And if you do find a company that is hiring, that's a great company to hone in and see if you've got any potential alumni or other networking contacts there, and delve into that, find out what kind of hiring they're doing and what advice you can get about applying and standing out. But while you're doing all of that, volunteering, we always talk about volunteering as an excellent networking opportunity. It's one of those things where you're going to meet people from all different walks of life, and people are going to see you in action. And that's true even if it's a remote opportunity. You could definitely find something that's related to your career interest. It's in an industry or a field, or it's for a cause that's, very meaningful to you. Something that you are thinking about, spending your work time and your career time on. But it also could be something related, skills wise, so it might be an organization that's not necessarily someplace you'd ever work for, but they're looking for somebody to do digital media or data or some other skill set that you would like to develop further, you'd like to be able to list on your resume. And volunteer work, you don't need to separate it out separately on your resume. It's part of your experience if it matches the, sort of skills that you're trying to highlight for a particular job application. So get that hands-on experience, even if it's unpaid, if you're able. Mention networking. And there will be a lot of political campaigns active, particularly congressional and Senate and other local races. We're just, we're having the primary here in New York and in several other states, so that'll narrow it down in general to, one or two or three candidates for these seats. So that's always something to take a look at. But it's also, volunteering doesn't just have to be about furthering your career or developing your skill set. It's also fine to just volunteer because it feels good. It, it may not literally take you out of the house at the moment, or it might, as long as that's safe. But it also it gives you something to do. It gives you something to think about other than, your own job search and some of your more immediate concerns. And you never know, you volunteer for something you think you're not necessarily interested in making into a career, and, it's a new thing that you really enjoy doing, so.
I think that's a great point, Christine. It speaks to that whole, what can you contribute? What can you bring right now? Not just because it's nourishing to you and you might be really passionate about a particular cause, but because that volunteer opportunity, once you're in the door, kind of relates to Alexa's points about networking too. Volunteering is a way into an organization. It's a way for them to get to know your work and to get to know you as a person. So a job might be on the other end of that.
And then finally, skill building. I know you just graduated and you don't necessarily want to return to class, but there's a lot of different ways to build skills. We'll talk a lot about, how you'll fit the different things that you're doing at any point in your life or your career into a narrative. And, one of a great answer to the question, what did you do right after you graduated from college into this tough job market? You use the time to add to your skill set or refine some of your skills and sort of improve your opportunities. So if it could be related to your interests, it could be your existing skill set. It could be that you all through Barnard, you wanted to have time to take Athena's coding class, or to do a little bit more data analysis, or to join a public speaking club and improve that skill set, or get better at writing in particular genres. There's all sorts of skills that you can develop, and being able to talk about, what you did, why you wanted to learn about something, what you learned about it, and how that's going to apply. And you absolutely, anything that you do, any skill that you gain over this time, you can put it on your resume. There's a couple, it could be in your skill section, it could be worked into your bullets, it could be worked into an independent work section if you want to make that on your resume. So, and then that website, that last point's a really important one, is that you can create your own personal portfolio or website that demonstrates that skill set that you can then link people to. There's lots of resources out there. I often like to talk to people about a continuum. There's like the really easy to access free stuff, which would probably be YouTube. You know, I always love to remind people that the beauty of YouTube is if you like don't know how to make a pivot table on Excel and a job description, right, you can click repeat as many times as you need to on YouTube, and you will master it. So so it's not necessarily the most compelling certification in the world, but it does sort of teach you the language, teach you some of the skill set, and help you be knowledgeable in interviews and in getting started. LinkedIn Learning, you have access to still through your uni. And that's was formerly, what was it called? lynda.com, formerly before LinkedIn took it over. And there's a lot of, a whole variety of skills you can learn there, from office and administrative to more technical things. That next row, Coursera, edX, how do you say that? Udemy? Udacity. These are sort of what we call course aggregators. You can go on and look for different courses. Some of them are free, some of them are inexpensive. Some of them are MOOCs, massive open online courses. And then we have what are sort of, I'm not sure what this category is called, boot camps. General Assembly started out as a coding boot camp about 11 years ago and has grown a lot of different flexible options, as well as their original boot camps that are, you know, anywhere from like 9 to 13 weeks long. Metis is specifically for data analysis. So those are options as well that can be, and a lot of them, the boot camps can be fairly expensive, both in terms of time and money, but they've got some flexible pricing, flexible scheduling that makes it a little bit more accessible than it was. And then at Barnard itself, we've got, again, in the center, our whole suite of things we're offering this summer. The Empirical Reasoning Center has a bunch of tutorials, online workshops, and other resources there, and that's all for free, and the Vagelos Computational Science Center as well. So continue to use those Barnard resources and keep building up those skills. Back to AJ.
So I'll take it home from here. What does all this add up to, and what have we talked about this afternoon? I think we tried to give you a pretty good sense of our general feeling about macroeconomic trends right now and how they are affecting students and recent alums in different ways. And I think it's important for you to know that we are just as uncertain as everybody else. We're taking information from lots of different inputs, and as it comes in, we're trying to give the best possible insight and feedback to students and alums about how they can respond to the circumstances on the ground. Throughout this summer, I think that our story will change many times as new inputs come in, as new information comes in. And so I think one of the things that's most important is that if you tap into Beyond Barnard Advising, one thing we're going to talk to you a lot about is creativity, resilience, and a lot of improvisation and experimentation over the course of the next few months. We are doing that ourselves. This is one of my favorite little montages. This is like week 2 of remote work. You got Bruce with his dog. Lindsay was actually able to send Casey back to daycare, at least part-time, I think, this week. Camille is still working on student employment and jobs. Jen in the bottom left is still working on fellowships. I'm not wearing a knit hat anymore because I guess I feel like I'm getting a sunburn in my apartment right now. But all of us are still at Beyond Barnard every day advising. And if you have been hesitant to reach out, we hope that today is a good first push to come join us. So I do want to shout out the Mission Job groups. This event this evening is actually our kind of informal kickoff of Mission Job. What is this program? It's specifically for members of the class of 2020 who've just graduated, who may be looking for an opportunity. They're essentially just weekly check-ins led by a Barnard staff member, and they're an opportunity for you to talk about what worked in the previous week, what was really hard, what were some successes, where are you stuck. We started doing these in spring, and like Christine mentioned, they were really just positive group discussions. And no matter how stuck you feel at the end of that hour, you feel like you have some concrete steps to continue to move forward. And they were successful. So some of the strategies that we talk about in Mission Job can be really crucial to your capacity to think of some new ideas and find an opportunity. We will share with you the registration links. They are happening every day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for the next 8 weeks. There's the Thursday group. I just shared that one. I'm trying to do 2 things at once right now. Walking and chewing gum was never my strength. Here is the Wednesday group. And here is the Tuesday group. I would not do mine on Tuesdays. I would sign up for Christine's if I were you. Hers is on Thursday afternoon. And Alexa, I can't remember, you're sitting this one out, right?
Yeah, no, I won't.
Okay, good. So I didn't want to offend you and be like, don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't go for mine either.
No, so please sign up and take advantage of some sustained opportunities to connect with each other, learn from each other, and continue to navigate the job market. Summer Colloquium, like we've mentioned, extends through the end of August. There are tons of different workshops on everything from negotiation to advocating for yourself and standing up for your rights in the workplace. We have sessions that are refreshers on resumes, cover letters, interviewing, and way more. We've built these sessions in response to feedback that students and alums have offered us, not only in the First Destination Survey, but also in the internship and summer activities survey. So we're really excited to be bringing content to folks that leverages our strengths locally at Beyond Barnard, but is responsive to what you all have said that you need. And if you need more, just tell us. Always email us at beyondbarnard@barnard.edu and let us know how we can be helpful. Don't let us don't feel like you can't tell us where we need to be better and where we need to be supportive of you. We're always as responsive as we can be. Definitely get your documents revised. Don't feel like you have to send resumes. We say that you can't only submit resumes and cover letters on websites, but you still do need to do that. So we're always happy to look over bullets, tell you that your font is A-OK, make sure that your formatting is appropriate to the industry that you're looking for, etc. Please tap into us and just make an appointment to get started on Handshake. Once you log in, click Career Center, and you'll be able to see the calendars of our great advising team. I am so excited about this rocket that I put on the Mission Job logo, guys. It's the small victories in this remote time. So I found that rocket image. Thank you, Christine. At least I get a thumbs up from Christine. It's a good afternoon for me. Like we said, Mission Jobs is Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We have a great series on navigating the school to work transition. Career Skills Week navigates everything from job documents to interviews and networking. Check out the full selection of offerings, and please tell your friends. We have more than 400 signups for these events already, and we're just blown away by how engaged students are and alums as well, with some dedicated programs for alums. But tell your friends and let us know what you need. And if you are a recent senior on the call, please do fill out your First Destination survey in Handshake. It's enormously helpful to us. You saw some of the ways that we use the data today to provide real feedback and honest updates to folks about what's happening in the job market. So it's incredibly helpful. Thanks to those of you who have already. We'll end it there. There's a dog on the beach again. You're welcome to email us directly. And as we mentioned at the start, if there are questions, we have a couple of minutes remaining, so please feel free. We'll give it some time. We'll stop talking. I'll clear my throat on mute. But are there any questions that we can help address?
You can either type them or unmute yourself and ask them out loud. I just want to add on the Mission Job groups that, you don't, just join one. There's no rules for what you have to report or how much you have to get done. It's all about supporting each other, having, again, part of that routine and structure, knowing, that you can check in with people and as AJ shared, share what's working, share what's not working. You also can drop in and out. Ideally, you check in every week, but if that doesn't work for you, then that's fine as well. They're very flexible. So definitely consider joining one if you haven't yet.
We did have a question come in about when these recordings will be visible. Basically, they're visible as soon as Zoom sends us the compressed file, and we can add a couple of slides on the front and back. What we'll do is we always send the presentation for these events, just the static presentation, so you can use that resource right away this evening. And then within the next week or so, you should be able to find a recording up on our YouTube page, which I will link right now, and which we're so excited. It was one of the projects we'd wanted to accomplish for a long time, and we didn't. And now it's there, so I'll chat that to everyone. In the meantime, another question came in. Many jobs have applied to ask me for an address. I'm looking in New York City, but I'm living at home out of state right now. Is that something that will hold me back as an applicant? Christine, Alexa, do you want to take a swing at this one? I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I read it and then I was like,
We're
oh,
playing with each other. Who gets to answer? Yeah, I think it's fine either way. I think most people will, people are so spread out now because of COVID, and so many people in particular in New York, we've noticed we noticed a lot of young alumni on our career panels over the spring were sort of phoning in from, parents and friends' homes all over the country. So I think it's not something that will hold you back. Sometimes in a competitive market, they'll, focus more on people who are in New York. So sometimes people will use their Barnard address or a friend's address if you want to do that, but I don't think you have to. But it's always helpful to make it clear in a cover letter, if there's a cover letter option, to say, I will be back in New York, and you can just make up a date, because, if all goes smoothly, you will be back in New York. So you could say, I'll be back in New York, by mid-August, or, whatever you want to say. So you sort of make that definitive declaration that that's where you're going to be. And I think that that should be fine. But Alexa or AJ, if you want to agree or disagree, jump in.
Yeah, I also, sometimes people are just uncomfortable having their address on there, which is fine. You could just put city and state. You can put, New York, New York. It doesn't have to be an exact address. You can just choose to have your email and phone number. I mean, I know I'm a huge proponent on networking, but I think this is also where it can really come into play, to have somebody be like, also, if you're concerned about the fact that, or just anything, if that's something really important that you want to get across, and have that person relay that message for you. But I definitely agree with Christine. There's like no right or wrong. And I think unless it's a really competitive position, sometimes it's not even necessarily noticed. But I think making it clear in something like a cover letter, if you do choose to put your permanent address, I think is going to be helpful.
As a general rule, I took this as when you have to type your address into an online application and you can't really avoid it.
Oh, I see.
But
yeah.
I definitely want to make the distinction. On your resume itself, I would just avoid the issue altogether by just putting email and phone number. You don't need to put your address on the resume, which is generally going to be the first thing they see. But then, yes, sometimes job applications will require that you actually put in an address, and I think it's fine to put in your home address.
For sure.
Our current address.
We are at a little bit after 5. We've been big fans of ending Zoom calls on time. Everybody is on Zoom way more than we ever thought we would be. If it's nice where you are at in the country or around the world, please go outside and look at the sun. I'm going to go do that on my daily mental health run right now. Please take care of yourselves. Thanks for joining us this evening. We hope to see more of you throughout the course of the next couple of weeks. Thanks to Christine and Alexa, as always. And good to see you multiple times today. Let us know what you need. I'm going to put, the last thing I'll put in the chat is Beyond Barnard at barnard.edu. That's me, Dean Youngblood Giles, and 2 of our great support staff at Beyond Barnard. We do our best to get answers to your questions as soon as we can. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything. Take care of yourselves, everybody. And
bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.